Now I am going to warn you, today on the show we're going to talk about the negative side of WWE 2K22. We're talking about all of the different things that the game got wrong.
Dummy, yeah.
Welcome to the show, I'm Matt. Good to have you here. Now, if you are somebody that is brand new to the channel or you've recently subscribed and you've been catching out just a couple of the episodes here and there, thank you so much for checking things out and being a part of the community. It's really awesome to have you here. If you are longtime viewers and subscribers and all of that stuff, thank you guys so much for supporting the show. There's a lot to talk about today. I wanted to do this video to really kind of reflect, and I also asked this on Twitter of what you thought were some of the things that were wrong with 2K22. Now, one of the first things that 2K got wrong with the game is they didn't add any new match types. One of the most disappointing things, one of the things I was most excited about when the game was first announced was the possibility of brand new match types or bringing back match types of days of old. With so much time between 2K20 and 22, I was really hoping that we were going to see something fresh from the matches. I wanted that list to be as big as it is, and then sprinkling in some favorites and some stuff that we haven't seen. And it was really disappointing that we didn't get the likes of War Games, or a returning special referee match, an I Quit match, and one of my personal favorites, 3 Stages of Hell match. Oh, I was gonna say a Gauntlet match too. Just some of them, and I know, let me know in the comments below some of the match types that you wish were in there. Those are just some that I know have popped up in the comments a lot, and I really hope that 2K can turn around for 23 and be able to come back and say, yeah, we can add in these match types. These were really prominent from the fans. They really asked for it. We can totally add in a couple of these. And I think it's gonna be important to make sure that the franchise doesn't get stale and that 2K23 doesn't feel like it's just an incremental update. And specifically with match types, I think for next year's game, they really need to nail this down. We have the multi-man matches. We have the options to edit and customize the matches themselves, create those custom matches. But when we don't see a match type like special referee, I think it really bums out fans. And I think it really did negatively hurt the game when it came out, and it didn't really have any new match types at all. The next thing that is on the list that 2K kind of got wrong was something that I was extremely excited for. I had hyped it all up in my brain, and frankly, it did not deliver the way I wanted it to. And I'm talking about GM mode. General Manager mode, or my GM in 2K22, was something I was really looking forward to playing, to get my hands on, that I thought would be the mode in the game that I would just spend endless hours going through, managing contracts, managing my roster, doing trades, doing all this different stuff, creating the universe that I want to, but being able to get into the nitty gritty. And believe me, I understand that for a lot of you, you may never even pick the mode up, or you say, I have no interest in just sitting there and managing the contracts. But for some of us, it is a fun thing to do. And so when it was first announced, I thought, man, this is going to be so cool. They're going to bring this back. It's going to be modernized. And unfortunately, the mode overall just felt kind of hollow, didn't it? Where you felt like it just needed a little bit more. There wasn't enough in there for you to really clamor onto. Not being very impressed with how they were managing the matchups, where it was based off of the different classes in order to make the rivalries work. I think that was a misstep. When the game was launched, we didn't even have the tag titles included in there. We only had the Universal title and the women's title to be able to use. We are still missing mid-card titles. You cannot do multi-man matches like triple threat or fatal 4-way matches in the mode. And that's what I mean when I say it was a hollow experience that didn't have enough. No, I don't think that adding mid-card titles would ultimately save the mode. It needs some tweaking. The bones and structure are there, and I think that with 2K23, they are going to build off of this. They're not going to drop it. They invested time and energy into making it something and to bringing it back because it was such a fan favorite for so long. But I think because they have the formula for it, they can see what worked and what didn't, and they can really build into the next game and being able to add those things that I mentioned, and also maybe be able to customize it just a little bit more and make it a little bit deeper for players to really get them hooked in there. Now, the next thing on this list is something that I don't think is going to go away in 2K23. We're talking about my faction. This being the card game, the digital card game mode that 2K is very focused on with this franchise. I can see why it's a revenue generator for them. I think it has potential. And when it was first announced, I was intrigued and excited, more so just curious of what this thing was going to look like. And as it came out, I think it flopped for me. There's too much of a grind in there. I don't think that there's enough depth. you're missing online capability for players. So I can't even look to see on leaderboards who's doing what, who's got what cards, what place people are in my community. And because of that, you can't do anything online like doing trades, being able to trade cards. And so I don't think there's much of an incentive to go back into my faction. And one thing that really bothered a lot of players, including myself, was the fact that superstars, their renders, their alternate attires, alternate versions of them, like DX, for example, locked behind my faction. I think this was a very big mistake by 2K. This is something they definitely got wrong. I just worry that they are not going to get this right with next year. We've talked about my faction. I don't want to go too in depth on that, but particularly the locked superstars behind the mode, I think is a giant misstep. And I think that needs to get corrected if they're going to go into the next game and keep it. And because my faction had so many locked stars behind the mode, we relied on community creations to pick up all the slack and to have creators go out there and try to figure out how to get all that stuff downloaded for all of us so that we can enjoy it. And Creation Suite is another thing on this list that I think 2K got wrong in some respects, particularly when it comes to hairstyles, beards. They've done patches over time where some of the patch updates fixed certain things, but then it did weird things where it ended up tucking shirts into the shoes and into the clothes. So then they had to patch it again to reverse all of that. The WWE 2K community, specific with creations for attires, for logos, and for doing superstars themselves, they put so much time, effort, and care into it. And that specific group of the community really just want more detail and just want them to iron out a lot of the weird stuff that they do with Creation Suite. It's become much more stable, which is awesome, but it's taken them several patches, and community creations is not new for the series. And after this many years of doing it, you'd think that they would kind of have it figured out by now. But it did seem that every time we moved one step forward to fixing something, it totally messed something else up in Creation Suite. I'm glad that we have things like rendered images, so we can use custom renders in the game. Even that messed things up for quite some time, but they need to allow more creativity in the Creation Suite. It does a lot, but it's also very lacking and limited in the same regard. That brings us to our next point, which is custom entrances. Customizing entrances and going really deep with it and being able to adjust camera angles for your superstar, being able to change it up as they're walking down the ramp was something that you miss doing in the older games. Adding pyro in there, having bits of different superstars' entrances to make your own. The entrance creator is lacking. It lacks the depth, and I think that's something that 2K got wrong with this game. I'm sure it can't be easy creating those things and putting together things like create an entrance, create a championship, and so on. But if you are going to include them in the game, you want to make sure that they're ready to go and they're going to service that audience. To this day, we don't even have RK Bros entrance in the game, yet it is listed as a template option. And it doesn't work. Okay, we've got two more things on this list, so hang with me. The second to last thing that we want to talk about and mention is, of course, Universe Mode. We didn't receive the grand update refresh that we're hoping for with 2 years of development. The only difference between this year's version and years prior was the inclusion of the Superstar mode, where you could just toggle to focus on one superstar only, but even that just felt a little bit hollow and really didn't do much. And I think one of the big things that was missed and that they got wrong was the fact that they didn't really revamp it, that they didn't take it a step further in its development to get more creative. But specifically, I think that they really messed up when they took out promos. I think not including promos in Universe Mode and removing them this year was a big detriment to the mode. And I think that that got a lot of players that I've seen online and in the community get very upset that this was taken out. My hope is that 2K23 will revamp this. Maybe they could just mash in my GM and Universe Mode into one so that we can get the best of both worlds, manage contracts and manage your shows and customize everything all under one roof would be amazing. But Universe Mode lacks the depth and it's starting to show its age and definitely needs more attention because it's one thing that they got wrong. The last thing that we have on the list for everybody today, and thank you so much for watching this episode, is the lack of communication. One big thing that 2K got wrong this year after the debacle of 2K20 was the lack of communication with you, the community. We would see certain updates and patches done by 2K. We would get excited. We'd see certain things get fixed, and we would applaud them for fixing these things and listening. At the same time, we would air our grievances whenever we would see a post by 2K PR just talking about My Faction, and they're the latest My Faction things you can download, and never talking about what fans could expect in terms of an update, in terms of fixes that are coming. I think it is a big, big thing that 2K really needs to focus on, that the dev team need to have somebody that needs to communicate a little bit more openly with players to let them know what the heck is going on with the game. Are we still going to even receive patches and updates for 2K22? We really don't know for sure at this point. And I understand it's more of wishful thinking and they don't need to do any of these things. It's a giant mega corporation. But when you want to build trust and you want to be able to revive a franchise from what 2K20 was with melting, oozing faces, and you're trying to win players back, if you provide a little bit more open communication, and frankly, I'm talking some communication, where you let them know that, hey, we are still planning to bring things out this year. We are still planning to update, fix these things. We hear you, and we are working towards X, Y, and Z fixes. I understand you cannot always give players and communities concrete numbers and timelines because stuff changes all the time, and you don't really owe it to us to say when, the next patch is scheduled to come out. But you have a very, very hardcore audience, passionate audience that want to play the game, that want it to be successful, because we ultimately just want to be able to play this and be able to have fun and not feel frustrated. And so with 2K23, I hope that one of the things that is on the list that they can fix, that they got wrong from 2K22, is improve that line of communication. If you enjoyed today's episode, guys, hit that like button. It really helps us out. And if you want more 2K22, click right here. More episodes, all this fun. Thanks so much for watching. See you over there. Bye.